first, Roger begins with a comedy about robots called Heartbeeps.
Well, Heartbeeps tells a dreary, boring, whimsical love story about two robots in the last years of the 20th century. They meet at the robot factory, and it's love at first transistor interchange. They wander away together, arm in arm, and along the way they're joined by a cigar-smoking comedian robot who's named Catskill and tells jokes by Henny Youngman. Well, I couldn't believe it until I read the credits, and they said, Catskill's Jokes by Henny Youngman. You'll believe it when you hear the jokes. The robotic lovers soon discover they're being pursued by a mechanical cop and by human technicians who want to return them to the robot factory. And in this scene, the robot couple, played by Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters, look for shelter in the cruel world away from their home factory.
We could damage ourselves if we travel in darkness.
The hollow part of the hillside would be a good place for shelter.
Question, what are the probabilities of encountering hostile life?
I have insufficient data. Whoa.
Oh, dear.
For a proper computation.
Do you see an alternative shelter?
Negative. Logically, the wildlife could coexist with our units in the cave. Perhaps there's a way to make the animal mentally aware that we are not a threat.
Val, wait! You could be basing your decision to act on invalid assumptions.
We need shelter for the night, and I think that I am best equipped to attempt to provide it. Hello? Hi. I am taking a calculated risk, so perhaps you can tell by my lack of weapons and my non-threatening tone that we mean you no harm.
What an exit.
It's hard for us to recognize Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters underneath all that makeup. It's also hard for them to push out a performance that means anything in this movie. On the other hand, though, the makeup and the special effects are the only real stars in this dreary movie, creating a world that's sort of a cross between Star Wars and The Wizard of Oz. Before long, Kaufman and Peters feel an urge toward familyhood, and so they build themselves a little child robot named Phil. And in this scene, Kaufman explains the facts of life to Phil. For robots, the biggest fact of life is that your battery pack can run down.
Phil, it will be night soon. What's the matter? Absence of bright lights is not necessarily a problem in accomplishing tasks. For example, at night, remember those tiny lights in the sky? Those are stars. One of them, the North Star, will appear soon, over there. The wonderful place of junk is in that direction. North. That's where our friends are. Do you understand? Good. I don't think you'll be needing this anymore. There's so much information I want you to have. So many new parts that I do not possess. You know, you're the first robot I ever built and programmed. And I want you to know that in spite of problems, you have been performing very well. You are extremely efficient. You aren't concerned about the coming absence of light now, are you? Good. Okay. Come on.
It's about as thrilling as a cold potato pancake. That little robot will remind some people of R2-D2 in Star Wars and his joke-telling robot pal Catskill. That guy has some of the same comic detachment that C-3PO had in the same movie. In fact, the whole movie, Heartbeeps, seemed borrowed from other movies, not only from Star Wars for its robots and The Wizard of Oz for its relationship among the travelers, but even from such an unexpected source as Jean-Luc Godard's famous French movie, Weekend, which is also a fantasy in which innocent characters wander through a threatening, futuristic forest populated with storybook characters and hostile authorities. The only inspiration in Heartbeep was the idea to recycle all those old movie formulas through a story about robots. but the robots and their story are slow and halting and boring. The movie suffers from terminal cuteness.
I think it's a bad film. I'm just thinking about what it'd be like to hear your film compared to a cold potato pancake. And then the other thing, of course, people will say, hey, it's John-Luc Godard, not John Locke. At any rate, that was a philosopher. You know that.
Excuse me.
Okay. Well, at any rate, I think it's a terrible film because the movie is 88 minutes. I checked this. Before the titles begin, there's a 3-minute sequence in which the two characters, Bernadette Peters and Andy Kaufman, have a touching scene in front of a rainbow, and they have a human emotion. These machines respond to that, okay? That's the whole movie. The other 85 minutes that follow after the title add nothing to the film.
This sounds to me like the kind of the movie that was dreamed up over the wrong lunch. You know,
Yeah.
maybe they ordered the wrong wine or something. The inspiration for this film is totally off base. And furthermore, they didn't come up with any idea for what to do with it once they had the inspiration. Let's put these robots in this story. Fine. Now, how can we make the robots? How can we produce the film?
Nothing.
Who are the robots and what is their story?
Nothing
There is
on
no
the story. There
Right.
is no story. You march them out in the woods, you bring them back. It's terrible.
Heartbeeps stars Andy Kaufman and Bernadette Peters in a whimsical, much too sentimental story of two robots in love. We both vote no. The story got awfully thin and boring, repetitive.